Countdown, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram and TikTok at Tokyo Station Pens, and on Twitter at Tokyo Station MNH.
And my name is Jacob. I'm Fuda fan on, the internet. Go search.
And yeah, as you said, Jacob, earlier, we are officially live at the Tokyo International Pen Show. I think it's become a little bit of a tradition where we do a live show at the Tokyo International Pen Show every year. And yeah, this year is no exception, obviously. Jacob, you came earlier this morning. You've had a bit of a look around. I am actually working at the show this year. So it's been a little bit of a change from the previous years, where I think the previous years we came on the special day, the first day, and usually we didn't really have much time to, actually go look around the show. It was really more of a mad rush. But this year, I think we really have more time, more opportunity to absorb the show before getting on the podcast.
But is that true for you though? Because again, you're working, and based on what you said about working at the US pen shows, you're basically stuck at your table for the entire duration. So have you been able to walk around at all and see the other table vendors?
So fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not quite sure, but it's definitely quieter here at the Tokyo International Pen Show. Especially the setup time. I think everybody's quite efficient setting up, and notably, I think the hallways are much larger, much more spacious than the US show. So everybody got set up relatively quickly, and I was actually able to look around, do a quick walkthrough before everybody came in the morning, because what they're really good at is the crowd control. So every morning before the show starts, they wait until exactly 9:30 or whatever the entry time is, and they have this ceremony where everybody stands up and claps for the people who are attending. So it's a very Japanese thing, but yeah, before those times I was able to take a look. And interestingly, at the Tokyo show, what happens is they've split the show into several different blocks. So we had the morning block and the afternoon block, and in between there's 30 minutes of rest time where obviously you can have lunch or look around.
Did you have that at the US pen shows, this rest time in between?
Absolutely not. So what we're getting is a transmission from the organizers.
Someone lost their sailor pen.
And you can really see how efficient the organization is just by this. They have a PA system where they can alert people, hey, somebody's lost their pen, please pick it up at this booth, or hey, whoever, vendor, somebody's looking for you. And I think it is really easy. It's really much more well organized. But on the flip side, it's a lot more expensive than the US shows. It's about maybe 2 or 3 times the table price per table versus what we would pay in the US.
So compared to last year's tips, I think that the size of the venue, the hall, is the same or pretty much the same, but the difference is that more of the space is actually used for tables, used for the vendors.
Yeah.
So last time, almost 1/3 or 1/4 was dedicated to workshops and the stage, and there was this area for volunteers, right?
Yeah.
And it was the same previous years. Now that's the workshops and the volunteers, they have moved to different rooms. So more of it feels like there are more vendors, there are more tables here than ever before.
What I remember is 99 vendors, and last year we were really almost at the entrance, and this year we're recording right from the wall of the hall. So, next year we're going to get booted out and kicked out into a separate room, I think. But definitely the show has grown in terms of vendors, and we see now more of the big players coming. I saw they don't have a table here. I saw Itoya represented this year. I saw Isetan represented this year, and just really a lot of, especially yesterday was more of a kind of quote unquote private day. We saw a lot of industry insiders come in, and we got to talk to them. And today's more of a public day. So today we'll have 800 people, and I think tomorrow we'll have 800 people as well. So I think in total that makes in total, that makes about 2,000 attendees.
Mm. But so yesterday during this special day, would you say that there was a lot of actually people here buying stuff, or was it mostly like industry stuff, like people talking to each other and making deals or whatever?
Yeah, I think there was a good split of both. I think for the industry stuff, there was a lot more. Obviously, they can use their work time to come here because it's work for them. So we did manage to meet a lot of people and, you know, not necessarily make deals, but at least initiate some conversations. Whereas the other part of the attendee, the other demographic, is, I guess, VIPs, quote unquote, or like people who are, we would call in Japanese, they're like mania. So they're like really, you know, really into this pen and ink swamp. They're knee deep, and they're willing to take a day off to come to the show.
But about that, I talked to Morrison, one of our favorite topics, and I read his blog this morning, and he said that yesterday during this special day, almost no one sold any ink. He complained about that he didn't sell any ink, and he talked to Hachimonja, he talked to Pentanote, he talked to a bunch of others, and they all said the same thing, that almost no one came during the special day to buy inks. Your Bungo Josh's, his turn, weren't actually at the event yesterday, while today he said business is great, things are selling well.
Yeah, I think it really depends on which store you're talking about. So, for example, Bungakan Kobayashi, they had their new ink with a special label, and that was sold out, I think, within minutes of opening. Because I wanted one, they said, sorry, we're sold out. But otherwise, I did notice that sales wasn't super great on the first day. Like, I know Likto was a bit empty. We were obviously a bit empty, and then we noticed that Ishimaru, they had quite good foot flow for the entire day. But yeah, maybe it was more like glass pens or more rare, hard to find items rather than the inks.
But one interesting thing about what Morrison said is that he also mentioned that, to his surprise, the resellers, or the 10 buyer, were not at all present yesterday, and apparently that was different from last year. And so I asked him, how do you even define the resellers? Are you talking about people who buy a lot, or if not, do you recognize them? And said he was just laughing and said, I know exactly who the resellers are. We recognize them by now. So that they are kind of famous or infamous now.
Well, I'll say that Izumi came yesterday, and he's going to come back tomorrow. So there was at least Izumi, but otherwise, yeah, it's very much people, hardcore people who wanted to look at the pens, who wanted to discover new things, and that was really interesting. But what about you, Jacob? How's your experience at the show been so far?
Yes, I came a bit early today. I haven't spent actually that much time at the show yet because I had to leave for a bit. Other than the fact that there are more tables, I would say, this is to no one's surprise, more glass pens than ever at Phipps. And more of these, as you said, the established vendors that you don't really think of as like Hensho, like the Shosaikan is here, Stas Stationery Store is here, and so on. I think that is something new.
I asked them, actually. Shosaikan was here last year, and they showed off their Toma collaboration. And I did ask them, they said that sales was slow, but they see this as a marketing event for them. And I think that is true for a lot of the vendors here. They're not necessarily here to make money, because they could probably make a lot more money in their own store. But this is for people who might not necessarily know about them, because all the stores are in one place, you get to see everything. They're hoping to get new customers out of this. And I would tend to agree with that.
Yes, other than that, as usual, there aren't that many vendors selling new fountain pens. There are some, of course, but a lot of the tables are, as we said, about glass pens, they are about ink, they are about paper, they are about accessories, like pen cases, stamps, washi tape. and so on. So it's not. Yeah, it's not a pen show. It's not a
Well,
pen show.
Shosaikan is a great point, case in point for you because they didn't develop any new pens for this
Yeah.
year, but they did have a new glass pen to sell, which they're first selling at the show here.
Yeah.
I think that is a good case in point. And I think, yeah, definitely this is more. I think it's a more balanced show. The only thing that we're really missing is vintage pens, older pens, like interesting pens with mechanisms. And we'll get to that a little bit later on. But I think if we get more of those kinds of vendors, this show is actually very, very well balanced in the sense that, for example, Washington D.C., it's almost all vintage, almost all European, and almost all fountain pens. Whereas here, you got a really healthy mix of everything that you would need, orbiting the stationary hobby.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That if you want to buy ink, you go to Inkunuma or you go to Trono Limbs. If you want to buy vintage pens, you go to Wagner. If you want to buy cute washi tape stamps, you go to Bungo Yoshihaki. But if you want a little bit of everything, like a balance, then you go to Tips.
Yeah, and it's definitely not like the most pens ever, but I think it's still healthy to come because you're seeing everybody. And something that was cool yesterday is that we had the vendors dinner, where we got to socialize with a lot of vendors. You know, we introduced each other to each other, and that was really nice to catch up with some vendors in capacities that I hadn't done before, because usually, you know, I'm there as a customer, but this time as a vendor. You know, like Nagahara-san came up to me and said hello. Toyoka Craft guys came to me say hello, and Lawrence people recognized me, and that was a bit weird. But I think it's nice that they have that, and that's something that we definitely don't have in the U.S. shows. For example, there's no like vendors dinner or vendors meeting where vendors get to meet each other and really socialize just within each other. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is, for some of these vendors, a big reason why they even come here. So someone like Hashido, I'm not sure if it makes, if he's selling enough pens to really make it worthwhile, if that's the only purpose. Right? But I think he enjoys, you know, having a ramen and some beer with the Nagahara after the event. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it was great fun. A lot of people had a lot of beers, I'll tell you that. But I left quote unquote early, at about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, like 2 hours in. But it was a good time and it was in the building, so that was really, really nice.
Should we talk a little bit about, you know, what we saw at the various vendors' tables? Well, I guess you haven't seen that much, but you have seen some of it. So we talked about Kobayashi, we talked about their new inks. I talked to them about, I showed them one of those well-known resellers. I showed them like there's someone here that is selling your Platinum 376 for twice the retail price. I mean, are you aware of this? And he is aware of it. But at one hand, he doesn't like it, but on the other hand, when I asked him, what if you sell it directly to people overseas? What if you allow people to buy it, you know, from an online store and actually overseas? And he says he doesn't want to deal with English, and he doesn't have enough people to take care of this for him, right? Apparently there is a way you can buy. They have someone who can take orders from people in China. There's like some Chinese ordering system that is not on the website, but those who know, they know apparently. But he just can't really be bothered to deal with that. So he seems to be, you know, okay with the status quo. This was kind of what he said last time.
Yeah, that's what he said last time, and I think this is kind of indicative of a little bit of the myopic scope of the Japanese pen scene. I think there's a little bit of pride to almost keeping it so exclusive. I mean, for the longest time, he didn't let people buy from even within Japan, right, online. And it's only because of COVID that he slowly, like second year or third year into COVID, he finally is opening up an online store to sell across even Japan. So I think for Kobayashi, there is a sense of pride of we're that company that doesn't sell overseas. And that's like kind of cool for them.
I'm not sure if it's pride as much as just a general sense of like men look side. This is too much hassle because apparently the popular like if you set up an online store in Japan, you use like what's it called like base or stores or whatever. Most of them by default they will accept domestic credit cards, right? So there's a friction there. You need to figure out an alternative means of payment, and of course, you need to figure out yourself how to ship overseas. But also, I mean, that's not the end of the transaction. Once you sold to someone overseas, you may have to deal with follow-up questions, returns, and you really need someone who can talk to them in English and deal with those like after sales.
Well, but even on the store, right? Like last time I ordered online from them, they had a specific notice where they said, we will cancel any order that is sent to a reshipping service. And for me, that doesn't really make sense because you're still shipping in Japan, but they wouldn't allow anybody with foreign credit cards to order. They wouldn't allow anybody even using Blackship to order. So I think, I don't know, but Kobayashi is a weird one, but they've always been kind of a weird but special one in the Japanese scene.
Yeah, I agree. But again, I don't think it has too much to do with pride as it has to do with it. It's not worth the hassle.
Maybe, yeah.
Should we talk about one of the most interesting tables, Fuga?
So we talked about Fuga last year. They were here last year. And I think the discussion last year was that they had a bunch of different sample pens and sample materials, and they had like this box where they would show the process of making a nib. So it seemed like they were making in-house nibs. But the weirdest thing was that they didn't have any nibs for you to try. They didn't have any nibs for you to sample. And they had nothing for you to buy. Now, it took them an entire year, but now they have nibs for you to try, but still nothing you can buy. Like, they're not here to make money, right? They're not here to really sell anything.
No, I think they are here to sell, but they're not selling to end consumers. They're trying to strike business deals.
Yeah, so what they told us, and we asked them, we said, hey, do you have anything that we can buy now? And they said, no, but we do OEM for other companies.
Yeah.
And that really piqued my interest. So before we talk about the OEM bike, did you try their nib?
Yeah, I tried their in-house.
What did you think?
Well, I didn't spend too much time on it. I don't know. Didn't really form a strike opinion about it. It seemed to write well, but that's true for most gold nibs. So it wasn't really anything special, but that's not. It seemed to write fine.
I really like the shape of their nib. I feel like their tines were really long, and as a result, it gave a really springy feeling that you don't find in a lot of modern nibs. And it's interesting because they had a really large tipping. And when I asked them about it yesterday, they said they were hand grinding this tipping, and they were basically doing everything. They can do your own custom engraving, not just laser engraving, but like stamp engraving. And the price was fairly reasonable for a large batch order OEM.
The one thing that was a bit weird was I went to the table, I started asking them. The first thing they did, they said that they gave me a cell phone, talk to our boss in China.
Yeah.
Like, okay, hello? And there was already some guy on the phone. I was like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to ask you, but hello there.
Yeah, so the story with this is that the boss in China, I don't know why, but he never gets to make it out to Japan. So they were going to have somebody else show at the table, but this person couldn't make it or something. So at the last minute, they got this guy who's, I think, a student here in Japan. They got some random student to stand at the table and hold the phone to whoever wants to buy these Fuga nibs. Which is, it's kind of funny, it's kind of charming. And you can tell they're here to be at a trade show, not necessarily a consumer enthusiast show.
Yeah, and then I asked them about Iwasis. The last time we talked about how they had these very exotic bespoke Makie pens that we recognized from Wagner, from Iwasis show. And I asked, is Iwasis still involved in this business? And he said, as for health reasons, Iwasis is not really involved in at all right now. So
which I feel like we've heard before. But that guy always manages to rear his head back up. So I don't know.
he's the puppet master in the background.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
But they do offer a lot of different nib sizes, and know that you can't buy them necessarily yet. Another interesting thing about them is that what they told me that they developed a housing with Yovo, but it's their housing because they're developing in-house ebonite feeds too.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So all of their nibs come with ebonite feeds and their own housing, which I thought was pretty cool. You don't see that very often here, and I think if that's a level of Chinese pen manufacturing, now we have pen BBS 14 karat gold nibs. You have the carved nibs, which when I looked under the microscope, it looks like it was hand engraved, even though every single one of them looks exactly the same. So the level of carving is incredibly high. You have now Wingsung coming out with 14 karat gold nibs, and Fuga said they're working on doing a number 8 nib as well, number 8 gold nib, and they're not messing with any steel nibs. You know, they're not going out and trying to make the lower end stuff.
Right.
They're actually really focused on the high end stuff. And if this is the level of Chinese manufacturing now, I mean, wow, I think in 5 years, I think they're going to take over the world.
It's happening. It's happening.
It's happening.
So, are we done with Fuga? Should we talk about the style art?
Yeah.
So I think last time he was partially joking, but he said the Japanese people don't really buy expensive pens. You know, his main customers are in the U.S., San Francisco, and so on. And he said that there's a difference this year. He said that especially female customers bought Urushi pen this year. So he wasn't really sure why, what it's coming from. I mean, because he hasn't really changed his lineup that much, but apparently that there's a demand for fancy Urushi pens among female customers.
Do you think that it's because that demographic has kind of matured and evolved over the years? Because I think in a pen show like this, maybe 7 years ago, you wouldn't see as many women. And when we commented about the growing female audience in Japan for fountain pens, we see this at Wagner, we see this all over the industry. Do you think that segment has matured to a point where they're dipping their toes into that, not even just high-end, but really high-end stuff after the Nakaya, right? Like, you buy a Nakaya, it's great, and then you see a custom handmade pen, master lacquer artists' work, and maybe they feel at the point where they're comfortable spending that amount of money because they've gone through the process.
Yeah, I mean, that can definitely be the case. I mean, we know that there's a lot of new people coming into this whole world of fountain pens from, ink and planners, and they get the Preppy and Kakunos and Fontes. But that's quite a jump to go from your first Preppy to an Urushi style art, right? So I still don't understand why, again, in this world, that there's a big difference from one year to another.
But even on Twitter, we see a lot of ladies buying Nakayas. I wouldn't be surprised if Nakaya's share of female customers has risen dramatically over the last few years, and especially after they announced a price increase. For example, Aya on IG, Addicted sticker planners, they're all buying. They're rushing to buy custom Nakayas, and so I think maybe this build up hasn't necessarily been from one year to the next, but it's been slowly growing. But when you talk about Stilo Arts or Stilo Arts Makie pens, that's really on like the high end spectrum of the high end, right? Yeah. It's not just a normal high end.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'll have to keep an eye on this demographic. I keep on saying it, but I think that's where the purchasing power is.
So Style Art, they also had, I think maybe they had it last time, but they buy highly custom Urushis and they take the nibs and put on their own pens, right? Interestingly, I always was under the impression that they always took the whole section, and they just made like a wooden barrel for the section. That's not what they did this time. They actually made their own ebonite section because in his view, the custom urushi is just too girthy for his taste, and he wanted a more slimmer one that took that big nib.
Yeah, I think he does the custom sections on a few models. So for example, the Shirane model, he makes his own sections. This one, what he does is he takes a custom machine. And I think this pen was released in July because I went to his workshop in June where he showed us the prototypes. And what he does is he takes the nib and the feed and he puts it into his own section. But not only that, if you buy the pen, he gives you a custom-made section
Yes, exactly.
that fits the size 15 pilot nibs, which
Yeah.
I think is really smart because he said it's too, it's a waste. It would be a waste
Yeah.
to throw away this nice lacquer barrel. So yeah, that's a really good deal actually.
Yeah, I saw it, but there's something hilarious about a big custom urushi with, size 15 is not small, but for that pen, it does
Yeah.
look a bit small. But yeah, it's funny. There's something hilarious about that.
Yeah. And they showed me their high-end makie tray again this year.
Yes.
And I think year after year, I feel like their work gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not Motoshisan who's doing the actual painting, but they've clearly established some relationships with people in the lacquer industry to really step up their game. So they're not just that wooden pens company anymore. They're even evolving into a more dedicated high-end space.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Do you have a favorite model of Steeleret?
No, I'm always a little bit confused by the lineup. They do look a bit, from a distance, they look pretty similar. I never really gotten that much. I never really looked at models in that great detail. But they all look nice. But I can't really tell. It's some Asamao and I don't know.
Well, I'll say that the website is pretty hard to navigate, and it's pretty difficult to see the lineups. But that's why a show like this is great because you get to see it in person. And last year's show was the first time we bought a Steeleret, and we bought the Shirane model, and that model is fantastic. So definitely recommend.
So another table I went to, of course, is Yamamoto.
Yamamoto paper.
It's always, to me, one of the highlights. He talked a bit about, he makes these paper testing, I'm not sure what he calls them.
Yeah, paper tasting, like pamphlets, right? Packages.
Yeah, and he makes new versions of it every once in a while. I think he's on the 7th and 8th one. And he said that one of the reasons why he had to shoot the paper is that some of the paper they had before is actually not good anymore because the paper manufacturers, especially Nippon Paper, keeps consolidating and they're moving paper to different machines, the whole Tomogawa story. Same thing happening with Nippon Paper. So as a result, some paper that were good before, like Minuet and I can't remember the names now, they don't recommend them anymore, they won't sell them anymore, so they have to change it up.
I think that's really interesting, but I think that's also pretty healthy for them because what that means is they'll always have new products to put out. So it's actually, I think, good for Yamamoto Paper, but it's also good for the general industry, right? Because we're constantly forced to try new papers.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did see that he was on the 7th version, but I think maybe what he can do is even put in now it's an A4 size. You put in like an A5 or an A6 size, make it easier to actually paper taste. But instead of just 7th version and all of them have the same paper, maybe you do set A, set B, set C, and I think that would be a hit to really try and really encourage people to buy different types of paper. And even at my table right now, we're using Slite White, so all that paper does. I bought it from Yamamoto Paper themselves.
By the way, I figured out why it's called that. It's actually not, the spelling is not what you think. It's SLEIGHT.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I gotta check on my package again. Yeah.
So that was interesting. I asked about 68 GSM Tomoe River. He said that Samsung is like it's due to 2 months, so I mean you can order it from them. It's available now, but the minimum size is so great that almost no one is doing it.
Really?
So they don't like, make it and then like sell it and
Right.
tell anyone who wants it. You have to make a custom.
But
order.
was 68 a custom order previously as well?
I think they changed that in like 2019, 2020.
Okay.
So then I asked him, so what if someone likes 68 GSM from a river and can't really get hold of it now? What do you recommend as a similar replacement? And he wasn't actually sure. He said that'll be homework for me to come up with something.
I think halftone paper is quite good because when I was looking at the paper casing 7, I did notice that they had the GSMs printed on the pack. And I think what I saw, I took a picture of it, but I think what I saw was that the slight white is actually like an 80 something GSM.
Yes, exactly. Perfect.
Yeah, and then halftone color white is like almost 70, like 72 or maybe like 68, but closer to that 68 Moonlight River. I can't find the picture exactly here now, but I think maybe halftone color white could be a good alternative.
Yeah, but if you like to write with pencils, then slight white is perfect. So it's meant for colored pencils, and it's a collaboration between Hokuetsu, I believe, and Sakura Craypass.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
so that's a really good paper.
Did you buy anything from Yamamoto?
Well, the problem is I have the press pass, right, and it's too awkward to buy anything with a press pass. So I'm waiting after 5 o'clock.
Oh, you're gonna do
the vendor time. That's when I hide my press pass and go and buy whatever I want.
That's cool. But did you see products that you're like gunning for at like Yamamoto or something else?
No, I will. So there was a few things at Mr. Pilot's table that looks.
Oh, I haven't been there yet.
So I want to take a close look at that table. Other than that, not really, to be honest, because.
ご案内いたします。落とし物のご案内いたします。先ほど申し上
Should
げ
we-
We're
た
taking a small intermission.
ユンさんの製品、ユンさん自ら説明させていただきます。
See you.
はい、クリッチョン用のアクセサリーです。ブラックの色で、
What we're experiencing here is the efficiency in letting customers and participants know about whatever announcement they're trying to make. All right, and we're back.
We're back.
That was an ad break.
Yeah, so I'll mostly be looking at Mr. Pilots and also Komekyo. I haven't seen Komekyo's table.
I haven't
yet.
seen it either.
And also, I just realized I haven't been to Furuta yet, so I
Oh,
need
yeah.
to go back there. So.
Furuta-san recognized me too, so I think he's going to definitely recognize you. Like, you're way larger than I am.
The big guardian, yeah.
Well, I also saw a lot of students here. There was a student who came out to my table earlier today. He said he's a medical student, so he's a university student, and he showed me some of his drawings, and they were actually really, really good, really, really precise. He showed me this posting needlepoint drawing that he did. That was fantastic. So I don't know. I think there is a wave, as I said in some previous shows, there might be a wave of younger people, and even just now, I think we saw some high school students, and they were just in their uniforms, walking around the show. So for me, this is a really big encouragement. I talked to some, so there are some customers who seem to think there are less and less people using fountain pens now, and that's what somebody told me yesterday. But then when I speak to the vendors, they say that's absolutely not the case. In fact, there are more and more people using fountain pens. And when they come to the show, they like to buy the wooden ballpoint pens or mechanical pencils, and then afterwards, when they get a job or they get older, when they have more disposable income, that's when they start spending on fountain pens. And I found that really interesting. That the industry seems to be very optimistic about it, but there's still like this naysaying or like doomsbringer kind of rumor or feeling around people who are not necessarily in the industry.
Yeah. So I want to spend a bit of time to sort of compare and contrast again the difference between US and Japanese pen shows from the perspective of a vendor, because for you, this is honest to count the Wagner Pen Club meetups / shows, this is the first time you're a vendor at a Japanese pen show. Right?
Yeah.
So we talked in the past, or in a recent episode, about the differences in planning, how you had these meetings where you went through, the whole contract, page by page. But now that you've actually been at the table, how would you describe the difference in the kind of customers the questions and what they buy and so on?
Well, I think for me, something that's the most obvious is just the amount of work that comes. In the US, I'm booked out before the show starts. Here, I've made almost zero yen. So I haven't really had any work at all, which is fine because I'm working on some other things, like some other projects that have kind of been delaying. So this is completely within my expectation. In terms of the work, though, I think people are just starting to understand. And what was really good is I'm here showing with Ben Walsh, and we've designed a pen together. And what Japanese customers were really interested in were new filling mechanisms. So we were able to show them, have them test it, have them try it out. And that was what's really, really good. That seemed to attract a lot of attention. On the other hand, in terms of the customers, I think in the US, maybe people are so used to pen shows, or maybe it's just the culture, I'm not sure. But a lot of customers kind of just come in and at least for us, maybe because we host the podcast, right? They kind of just, hi, and, kind of more forward about it. They're super, super friendly, and, they're not afraid to just start talking to you. Whereas in Japan, the customers are definitely more reserved. It takes a lot of coaxing for them to start talking, even if they're at the table.
But part of that, though, do you think there's a chance that they see you next to Ben Walsh and you think that this is some foreign vendors, they might not even speak Japanese, maybe I shouldn't even start a conversation?
But even when I speak Japanese to them.
Yeah, but they don't know that, they need to start a conversation with you to them to even realize that you speak Japanese, right? Or overhear your conversation.
I think it depends on the shop. If you're a shop with high visibility, like next to us is Ishimaru, they had customers coming over to talk to them, but not necessarily that friendly way. More that, I really like your products. I really want to buy from you. What is this product? Can you explain to me? Type of way. It's not in like the US where it's more like, oh yeah, nice to see you again. Get back. And I think that's a huge difference.
But also, your table is a huge mess. Do you think that has something to do with, then kind of hesitating that I even see what you're selling?
Well, good thing is the mess is on my part of the table. I'm not really selling anything. But I would argue that my table in the US was even a bigger mess.
Okay.
Just more stuff strewn all over the place. And I'm looking at tables across from us, like Uttopo, and they sell these pen cases and pen kimonos, and it's the same for them. It's really difficult for customers to start to approach them.
So, okay. Do you want to talk anything about the product that everyone's asking you questions about?
Are you talking about the Cinderella pen? I don't have it here right now, but there is a Cinderella themed Realo, which I actually knew about a few months ago, but I was very surprised that they came out with a Realo again, because last year when I talked to Haru-san, she kind of implied that every year they kind of want to do a different pen model. But now it's the second year in a row that they're doing a Realo. And on top of that, it's a clear Realo, which is even more transparent than the last year's Realo. And this means to me that last year's Realo sold really well.
So that's not the pen I had in mind. There's a prototype pen on your table, and I think a lot of people, listeners, may have questions about the prototype. Is there anything you can reveal about the prototype?
Oh, you're talking about my pen. So as I alluded to earlier, I'm working on a pen with Ben Walsh. We're hoping to have advance sale here at the show, but unfortunately, there were some issues with some of the parts, which made it difficult for us to sell. Particularly, it was easy to break some of the parts if you exert too much force. So what we decided to do is we decided to go back to the drawing board and redesign the mechanism so that it's unbreakable. That obviously means it takes a bit more time, but I think it's definitely going to be worth it, especially in a market like Japan where kind of perfection on the first try is almost expected. So we were able to assemble some parts, and the feedback that we got was that the pen itself is very interesting, and we got, I wouldn't say orders, but people definitely came and said, once you have this done, we want 100 of these for our group or our store. Yeah, just that's something maybe I shouldn't have, but we had a lot of people come up with interest, so that's pretty interesting.
So one question I have about this product is, do you think a large ink capacity is the main selling point, or do you think that is just like a side effect, that is actually just the fact that the filling system is elaborate, it's kind of satisfying to fill up? Do you think that is the main selling point, or not even that? What is the main selling point of that elaborate filling system?
I've heard all sorts of things. Some people really like the way that it looks, the design of it. Some people obviously think it's very satisfying to fill, and I'm one of them. But most of all, I think it's just something new in the industry. It's new for the Japanese market. And it's been many, many years since we had a new filling system in the Japanese market. So they've never operated something like this. I think for them, there's a large novelty factor.
I always thought that like having a fountain pen with a huge ink capacity is a little bit like having an SUV, in the sense that you have this idea that you need extra capacity for your off-road traveling while you're actually just going to the supermarket, right? And similarly with the huge ink capacity, you have this idea that you're going to be backpacking in the Alps, and you're going to be taking notes in your traveler's notebook, and you need all of your filing.
I think one of the cool things that really resonated with a lot of people, is how easy it is to clean. And I was having conversations with people coming over to our table, and I was saying, look, everybody hates cleaning their pens, right? And the customer's like, yeah, it's a hassle. So I think a lot of people like that aspect of it.
Okay.
Last thing that I want to cover is the news that I got from Nagahara-san. We mentioned his son a few episodes ago, and we mentioned how his son seemed to always just be standing at the back, really just fulfilling a helper role. Well, I got information that from next January, his son is actually going to become an independent nib worker. So, I, for one, am pretty excited to get a nib done by Nagahara III. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'd love to try. And most important, I'm curious about whether Nagahara Jr. is going to try some of the grinds that Nagahara
The first.
hasn't done in a while.
Yeah, so that would be very, very interesting. All right.
I have just one more thing quickly about Ohashiro that I forgot to mention. So we talked before about how he seemingly recently switched to 21K nibs, and we talked before that he had 14K soft nibs. Well, so he switched over to 21K when he still has 14K nibs. He introduced, as far as I understand, 21K when Sailor stopped making large 14K. So the only 14K has are the small one, not the large one.
Okay.
So if you need a large nib, it's 21K. But the other thing he mentioned is kind of funny. You know, Sailor, like a few months ago, they stopped marking the
Oh yeah, with the
H.
shotgun hard. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, HM is now M, HF is now F. At the same time, they stopped removing S. And because the difference between soft and hard is so subtle, right? He lost one of his selling points. Right? He can't prove that it's soft anymore,
Yeah.
right? And you can't really tell from writing with it.
Yeah. Well, I for one am sad that they stopped the large 14 karat gold nibs. I feel like it's a no-brainer to supply large 14 carats to the non-Sailor brands,
Yeah.
and then keep the 21K just for the Sailor name. But hey, I could be wrong. I feel like it would be cheaper. It's more efficient. I don't know if our hope for large 14 karat gold nibs but cheaper gold nibs will come to fruition with Sailor, but we can dream on.
But they still make 18K for Montegrappa and
I think so.
Rosa, so hard to understand sometimes.
All right, and I think we just got the music and the sign that we need to stop the broadcast and wrap up.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. I know we didn't get to everybody's questions. We didn't get to everybody's comments this time, but I agree they should plan some lunch breaks for U.S. Pen shows. And yeah, Ben has been doing great at the show. So with that being said, this has been the live from Tokyo International Pen Show 2022, and hopefully next year we'll have an even better show with more foreign visitors. I heard visitors from Singapore today, India, Philippines. So hopefully we'll have even more foreign visitors next year, and I think we will. I think we'll have a blast.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, thank you very much. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram and TikTok at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob, and I'm super fan on the internet.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.